No driver has won the British Grand Prix as many times as Lewis Hamilton has. 8 times in total. And maybe you think his best win at Silverstone was in 2020 when he won on literally 3 wheels. Or maybe his race-winning drive in 2021, probably ignoring lap 1 though, overcoming a 10-second penalty to make the race-winning pass just laps from the end. But I'd argue his best British Grand Prix victory was his first. 15 years ago in 2008, when only 6 of the drivers on the 2023 F1 grid were in single-seater car racing. And so ahead of this weekend's British Grand Prix, let's take a look back at Hamilton's stunning drive to his first British Grand Prix victory in 2008. The weather for the race day was what you'd expect of the UK. Raining. Sometimes that bodes well for Hamilton though, as weekend he goes well in the rain and he'd gone rather well in the wet at Fuji the year prior. And on this day Hamilton lined up P4 on the grid. No such a bad place to be starting in, and really not so bad when you take the championship into account, as only one of his rivals was starting ahead of him, and that was Kimi Räikkönen in P3 in his Ferrari, with the front row being occupied by Hamilton's teammate Heikki Kovalainen in pole and Mark Webber in P2 for Red Bull. At this time in the season, the championship was being led by Felipe Massa, who was starting down in P9 on 48 points, and Hamilton was 10 points down on the Brazilian in P4, with the aforementioned Räikkönen third with 43 points, and Robert Kubica just 2 points behind Massa for BMW Sauber. And bear in mind at this time he got 10 points for a win. Anyways, the lights soon went to, and Hamilton got off to a brilliant start to the race, getting past both Webber and Räikkönen as they headed into turn 1, which is these days turn 9, and it looked like he was gonna get his teammate as well on the inside, but Kovalainen managed to head on round the outside, but Hamilton really was already after an absolutely flying start, much to the delight of the home crowd. However, the same fortunes cannot be said for other drivers like Vettel and Coulthard, who touched and did a little synchronized spinning on their way into retirement. Webber spun, Nakajima spun, and Massa had his first of many spins. And I will say, it will always be strange watching old races and seeing a recovery vehicle out with no safety car. Now, as the laps ticked on, Hamilton made looks to try and get the lead, being right up behind his teammate, but he wasn't quite able to get it done. Until we came to lap number 5, when the Brit was close enough and he sent it up the inside to take the lead of the British Grand Prix through Copse Corner. A lead he would not lose. Hamilton begun pulling away a bit up front, and that lead only grew a little bit more when Kovalainen spun a few laps later, which allowed Räikkönen up into P2. Now, while Hamilton had a comfortable lead over the reigning champion, it didn't stay like that for very long, as Räikkönen started to close in on his rival over the coming laps, reining in the McLaren driver who he was at that time in a championship battle with. By the time they reached lap 21 of 60, he'd pulled the gap down to less than a second. But Räikkönen would not get the chance to try and make a move just yet, as at the end of that lap they both peeled into the pit lane. For Kimi, it was just more fuel as Ferrari opted to keep him on the intermediate tyres he'd been running all race, while for Hamilton it was more fuel and new intermediate tyres, and he remained just ahead of Räikkönen in the net race lead as they left the pit lane. After this pit stop, Hamilton just checked out. He was flying, able to pull away from Räikkönen, especially when the rain started coming down again just a couple laps later, and his lead was up to 12 seconds on lap 25, thanks to Ferrari's decision to not change Räikkönen's tyres. Oh, Ferrari, you never change, do you? But just a couple more laps after that, Hamilton's lead was up to 21 seconds, and by now he had lapped the championship leader Felipe Massa. The 23-year-old continued to lead, and the gap was keeping around about between 20 and 30 seconds to Nick Heidfeld, who is now in P2. Lewis was managing things brilliantly in the tricky conditions that Silverstone and the British weather was providing that afternoon, and the weather was not quite done yet, because why would it be? It's the UK, and the rain started to chuck it down around lap 36, and Hamilton did make a period mistake around about this time and went off, but he kept on going still with a lead of around 25 seconds. By now, McLaren were preparing for another pit stop for him, but there was a question. Do you go for more inters, or do you opt for a set of full wet tyres given the weather conditions? Well, we got our answer at the end of lap 38. Lewis Hamilton was going for another set of the intermediate tyres. An interesting choice given the weather, and at first it looked like to perhaps be the wrong tyre, as Rubens Barrichello was absolutely flying on the full wet tyres, though Barrichello was still just too far away for Hamilton to catch him. Hamilton was still managing things brilliantly despite possibly being on the wrong tyres. And that gap by lap 43, the lead was 46 seconds. And the gap, again, it only grew when Barrichello was forced to pit after the full wets back onto a set of inters a couple of laps later. And the lead was now over a minute. Lewis Hamilton's gap to Heidfeld in P2 was 62 seconds. At first, when Barrichello was rapid on the wets, it looked like maybe it was the wrong call to go for another set of inters, but McLaren and Hamilton made the right call to stick it out with another set of inters, stick it out through the period where it should probably be full wets, and then deal with it. He dealt with it brilliantly. From there, it was just a simple cruise to the finish for the British driver, taking his first home race win and doing it by 68.5 seconds and lapping everyone except for the other two on the podium. He put a lap on all of his championship rivals and bagged 10 crucial points to put himself level with Massa on 48 points at the top of the championship. A championship Hamilton would of course not lose by making a pass for the place he needed to finish in to get it at the last corner, the last lap of the last race of the season.
And is that Glock going slowly?
It is, it's Glock! Oh my goodness me!
The 2008 British Grand Prix was a calm, cool and collected drive from Lewis Hamilton. He got a brilliant start, then took the lead a few laps later and then managed things from there, whatever the weather threw at him, and it just shows how good he is in these rainy conditions and how good he is at Silverstone, a track he's gone on to win at 7 more times since then, in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, 2020, 2021. It's one of those tracks where you just do not count him out for a good result, and if he's slow there, you start asking questions, because there's clearly something wrong. What do you think was Hamilton's best British Grand Prix win? Do you agree with me in saying it was 2008? Or is it another year for you? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.